Well, on this episode of Chords and Coffee, we're going to talk about the old 1-5-6-4 chord progression. And there's actually, we have other episodes where we do this in different keys. And what's really cool on the guitar especially, there are different places on the neck, different geographic locations that you can play this basic chord progression. But because you're playing on different places of the neck and because of how the guitar is tuned, and also what key you're in, there's some different chord grips that aren't necessarily difficult, but they sound lush and extravagant and really cool. And so I want to give you the basic 1-5-6-4 in the key of E. That's what this episode is today. And then I'm going to then give you other chord grips that are easy to play, that sound really cool, and hopefully will, inspire some songs. Or if you're playing in a band where you've got multiple songs, and I'm sure you do, that have this chord progression, this might give you some different ways to approach that, just to kind of freshen things up a bit. So let's start with just good old-fashioned E. So, by the way, normally I play with a little bit heavier pick, but whenever I'm playing rhythm acoustic guitar, which is so important, it needs to, lock in with the drummer. And if I don't have a drummer, I need to sort of provide some kind of sense of momentum, a pulse, and some kind of percussive element. I actually normally like to use a thicker pick, but when I'm playing rhythm acoustic guitar, I use a much thinner pick. I use a .60, the red one, usually if it's a Tortex pick. And this is what this one looks like. It's got a really cool logo on it. Boom, look at that, little Palen Music Center pick. But I like to use this because when you're doing it, the rhythm, when you're playing the rhythm, there's almost like an egg shaker thing that ends up showing up because of the pick sort of flipping and flapping against the strings, right? Well, with that, let's put that to the test by learning these chords. Maybe you don't know just a good old-fashioned E chord. Here it comes. This is going to be, middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the A. Your ring finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of D. Index finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the G. Everything else is open. E. Johnny Cash would be proud. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a B bar chord. Now, wait, don't tune off. If you don't like bar chords or you hadn't approached the bar chord, this would be a great place to start. But hold on, there's going to be some other non-bar chords coming up. So this next one, a couple schools of thought here. Some people like to do it like this, where you have all of your fingers holding down the 4th fret. I don't recommend that. I just feel like that actually hurts more than this. Getting that bend in your ring finger, okay? You just as well jump into that as quick as you can, because that will pay off dividends. So index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the A string. It's going to lay across from the A all the way to the high E. Now your ring finger is going to hit the 4th fret of the D, the G, and the B, and it's going to bend right there at that first knuckle or whatever part of the finger that is, that first digitary opportunity for flexibility. There it is. That's B chord, right? Now the next one we're going to do is, and I'm just checking my sheet to make sure I don't get ahead of myself, C sharp minor, right? Easy peasy. Index finger is going to be across the 4th fret. It's another bar chord, but you can do this 4th fret of the A all the way to the high E. Just like the B chord, we're not playing the low E in this one either. We're going to build an A minor shape underneath it, where you're going to have your ring finger on the D string of the 6th fret, pinky on the G string of the 6th fret, middle finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the B, C sharp minor. Now from there, I think kind of a nice little chord to do, since you're already right here, let's just do this A major 7. So basically leave your middle, your pinky, and your ring right where they're at. And just take your index finger off, and then put that index finger on the 5th fret of the low E. Now, you're playing an A, but we're going to skip the A string because 2 reasons. Number 1, the angle of your index finger is going to naturally mute it. Number 2, I want this to be movable for you, whether it's this chord or this chord or this chord, right? And the best way to do that is to start treating it like a movable chord. So don't play that A string even though you're playing an A note on the low E. A major 7. So the whole thing got... Speaking of movable things, I'm going to show you a movable chord progression that is unique to the key of E because you have this E and this B string open. Let's take our index fingers and let's go to the 7th fret of the A string. Middle finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the D. Pinky is going to be on the 9th fret of the G. This is really just an E5, okay? Why is it an E5? Because there's no third in it. Whenever you see 5 next to a letter, like E5 or A5, whatever, that basically means it's a power chord. It's got a root and it's got a fifth. And in this particular example, all this is a collection of E's and B's. You got an E, you got an E, you got a B, you got an E, you got a B, and you got an E, right? But what's cool about this shape is because you have these 2 ringing strings, we can move this around. So the next variation on this, we're going to move down to the 2nd fret. This is going to be now a B sus4. Okay, so you've got index finger on the 2nd fret of the A. You're going to have your ring finger on the 4th fret of the D. Pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the G. An open B and an open E. This is E sus4. So I've got this same shape, and I'm just moving it down here. Now, for the C sharp minor, this whole sheboing just gets moved up a whole step. Right? This is going to be index finger on the 4th fret of the A. It's going to be ring finger on the 6th fret of the D. Pinky on the 6th fret of the G. Open B, open E. Now, because of the collections of these notes, you're going to actually have C sharp minor 7. So the E is your minor 3rd in C sharp. The B is your flat 7. And so, same shape, different name, super easy to play. But wait, there's more. So then the next one, we're going to slide this whole sheboing down here to the 2nd fret, and where your index finger would normally go, we're just going to have an open A right there. Now at this point, there's some ideological differences as we cross this Rubicon. Okay, do you want to go ahead and keep your ring finger and your pinky right here? I wouldn't be mad at you if it was a fast thing. I'd only make fun of you just a little bit, okay? But really what you want to do is you want to switch your fingers at that point and have your middle and your ring. But if you're lickety-split, getting there quick, I don't mind you having your ring finger and your pinky there like that. So once again, you got this E5 here to this B. It's really a B5 with a sus4. That sus4 in the key of B, E is the 4th. There's no major 3rd, and that's why it's still kind of a 5th note, an extra note on it. And then C sharp minor 7, because you've got all the notes there to make that chord. And then this A sus2. Fingers up to you. So that's pretty cool, right? All right, let's do another one. So this one's a little stretchy and starts to invoke a little bit of Purple Rain kind of Prince vibes, because you've got this add 9 chord right here. Okay, so this is an E add 9. I just played this for Jordan. He went, what is that? And your friends will do the same too. It's a beautiful chord, right? So you're going to have your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A. Pinky, you can do it. It's a little stretchy, but you can do it. Pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the D. Index finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the G. B and E are all open. Low E's open, of course. E add 9. That's a $20 chord, I think. Maybe $22. You know. E add 9. Then after that, while we're already here in Stretchysville, we could go to this. This is a B. This is just going to be a good old-fashioned B. But because of how it's voiced or how it's fingered here, it's going to feel a little weird, but not too much if you're coming from this E add 9. We're just basically going to move. We're going to leave our our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A, and then our index finger is going to come to the 1st fret of the D, and then pinky's going to be on the G string of the 4th fret, open B. Now, if you hit that E open, now you got kind of a sus4 thing again, because again, E is a 4th in the key of B, and we name chords after the key that would be native to their root note, right? So in other words, we named the B chord after the key of B, even though we're in the key of E now. If you have questions on that, comment below and I'll walk you through it. So I wouldn't necessarily play the high E string. Short answer. Now for the C sharp minor, we're here and we kind of need something that's in this neck of the woods, because I don't want to necessarily jump up here. Wouldn't be bad, but is there another option down here? Yes, there's this. This is going to be pinky on the A string, 4th fret. Middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D, and then index finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the G, open B and open E. That's a really cool C sharp minor. Then now, we've been doing a lot of A sus2. Let's do one more. This one's sort of a super duper A sus2, because it's going to have 2 B's in it. This is going to be index finger on the 2nd fret of the D. Pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the G, open B, open E, open A, not playing the low E. So that whole thing, the E add 9, B, C sharp minor, releases too. Now I'm not playing the low E on this B chord on the C sharp minor. In a lot of these episodes, when we start talking about soloing or melodic playing, I frequently will urge you and encourage you to develop lines out of chord shapes and the way the chords lay out on the neck. Man, these chords that I just gave you are amazing examples of that, because if you start playing these things one note at a time, they just lay out really nice and almost just birth a melody just by playing them one note at a time. So, all right, let's do some more. So this next one, this is one that is kind of out of the old Keith Richards playbook. What do I mean by that? Well, there's this little maneuver that sort of reminds me of something Keith would do. So what do you got here? Well, we're going to have our index finger laying across the D, the G, and the B of the 4th fret, okay? And if you know that move, you already know where I'm going here. We're going to hammer on with our middle finger on the 5th fret of the B, and then ring finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the D, and then your pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the A, okay? This is that under the bridge kind of chord, right? Except he does it in D down here, but same grip, right? Now, the difference though is we're going to have a low E going here. Now, I gave it to you with the index finger laying on the 4th fret because part of what makes this particular chord grip so special and fun is that if you hammer on and pull off with your middle finger and your ring finger, using that 4th fret with your index finger is kind of the anchor point, and the hammer on and pull off is kind of grabbing that, almost like a little kind of, it's just tickling those notes a little bit. What's cool about that is that, so here's our E, and then our B chord is basically going to be these two middle fingers come off, okay, and then your pinky's just going to go over here to the 7th fret of the low E. And because my pinky is laying across the way it is, I'm going to naturally mute that A string. I just felt like somebody out there is saying, well, my pinky doesn't naturally do anything, Nate. Well, give it a chance, okay? Let that thing lay across there and find the place. And by the way, on any chord where you feel like it's too stretchy or I can't do that because stretch, all that, usually your thumb is the culprit. If you'll just kind of move that thumb and kind of the rule of thumb that I like to participate in is that my index and my middle want to do this. You know, when I've got my hand on the guitar, my thumb wants to be in the middle of the neck. And if I'm just looking at where my index and my middle are right now, how they're placed, it's almost like they're doing this already. And usually when I'm feeling uncomfortable, it's because my thumb is going too far towards the high E or too far towards the low E, and just a little adjustment get you right back out of whack, in whack. That's right. So there's your B chord, right? And then now for your C sharp minor, well, I mean, it's kind of where we started. You're going to have your index finger now laying across the A all the way to the high E on the 4th fret, and my middle finger is going to come back right to that B string on the 5th fret of the B, and then my ring finger is going to be on the D string of the 6th fret of the D. And then now for this A chord, a couple different options here. Let me see what I put here because I just kind of forget stuff sometimes. You know, let's go ahead and use that A major 7 again. Is that what we did last time? Yeah. And, you know, if you wanted to break the cycle there, you could also use good old-fashioned just A bar chord. So A major 7, like we did a second ago, looks like this. Here's the chart again. Here's good old-fashioned A bar chord. This is going to be index finger from low E to high E, straight across. And you're basically going to build an E chord underneath it where I've got my ring finger on the 7th fret of the A, pinky's on the 7th fret of the D, middle finger is on the 6th fret of the G, index 5th fret, E to E. So that whole thing would be like this. And I'm going to like purposely hammer on to those two notes on the B string and the D string like I just showed you a second ago. Here's A major 7. That's nice. How about this one? This one is, so far if you've been like, I don't know, Nate, those are all kind of hard. This is easy. These are just 3 notes. Really beautiful. And I'm going to show you a little cool harmonic trick with this. So, this is an E major 7. It's an E major 7 because it's an E major chord that has the major 7. Well, what's the major 7 in the key of E? Well, if I go up the major scale, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That 7th note, that's a D sharp. I'm just adding that to the chord. So that's what makes it an E major 7. It is the presence of that D sharp with that E, that G sharp, and that B, right? So this E major 7 grip, it's lovely, and it goes like this. Middle finger's going to be on the 7th fret of the A. Index finger's going to be on the 6th fret of the D. Pinky is going to be on the G string of the 8th fret. It's got to be pinky because you want that ring finger free to do these little activities. Now I'm hitting the harmonic here on the 7th fret of the high E on that B string and the high E string. Just like that. 7th fret. Barely touching it. If you've never played harmonics before, you don't just play the note like that. I'm hovering above the actual fret wire itself. So, and if anything, I might be slightly ahead, but in my mind, I'm like right in the middle of the fret wire, the 7th fret. So here's the dot. Boop. This wire right here that's towards the sound hole, right? I'm right there above that, barely touching it, getting that little chimey thing. What's nice is you can do that while you're playing the chord. And if you did that the whole song, might get kicked out of the bank. Okay, I hate to inform you of that, but not everybody appreciates harmonics the way that we do here on Chords and Coffee. But at the right moment, when opportunity presents itself for a little chimey ding to come cutting through the mix, ain't nothing better than a well-placed harmonic. Now, after this E major 7, let's go to this. This is, again, it's going to be kind of like a B, add 4 or sus4 kind of thing. And so what we got here, index finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the low E. You're going to have your ring finger on the 9th fret of the D, 9th fret of the G. Now that G string, your pinky is going to come off of the 9th fret of the G. That pinky comes off and then resolves to the middle finger on the 8th fret of the G. So pinky, 9th fret of the G, middle finger, 8th fret of the G. And the A string is muted again because of how the index finger is laying. And you've got your open E, open B. And then after that guy, we got this really cool way to make a C sharp minor 7. Anybody can do that. It's going to be middle finger on the 9th fret of the low E, skipping the A again. You're going to have your ring finger on the 9th fret of the D, and then pinky is going to be on the 9th fret of the G. Everything else is open, except the A is being muted. Now watch this. This is kind of a little maneuver. It's super easy and you can do it. So this on this A, I'm thinking of this as like an A sus2 to a B over A to an A to an E over A. I'm not thinking that stuff while I'm doing it. I'm just thinking like this is an A thing that I can do that's in a major idea. And it goes like this. Because of where I'm at on this B, I'm going to use my pinky and my ring. Open A, ring finger's going to be on the 9th fret of the D, pinky's going to be on the 9th fret of the G. I'm going to resolve it just like I did a second ago for that B chord where my pinky comes off and my middle finger hits the G string of the 8th fret, and that whole idea slides down a whole step to ring finger on the 7th fret of the D, middle finger on the 6th fret of the G. Everything's open, not playing the low E, but from A all the way down, playing it all. And then this is going to be ring finger on the 4th fret of the D string, and then index finger on the, 6th fret of the D string, and then index fingers on the 4th fret of the G. So the whole thing is, and you can, come up with your own variation, mess around with that. But that is another really cool one. All right, I'm going to give you one more, and this one is going to play off that E major 7 idea. This time we're going to be down here. This is one of my favorite places to make E major 7 because you have this wonderful sort of rub here. So this is going to be E major 7 that we're instantly going to take to E5. And this is kind of a cool chord to show you because in this chord itself, the more notes you add to a chord, the more ways that you have to name it. And sometimes what can be confusing, in fact, I was having this conversation with Andrew, a buddy of mine who works at our Wichita store. You know, the more notes you add to a chord, there's multiple different ways to look at it. And the reason that's important is because how you treat a chord, in other words, what you play on top of it or what you sing on top of it, really starts with how you're thinking about it, right? Well, what do I mean? I'm about to show you. I made a strong coffee this morning, Jordan. You're going to have to partake in that. That will make you cowboy all the way to Montana. All right, so this is going to be, we're going to start with this index finger on the 2nd fret of the D. Ring finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G. Pinky is going to be on the 4th fret of the B. Now, we're not going to play the A string. We are going to play the low E. A little bit harder to mute on this one because now we're kind of muting the A with the tip of our index finger. And by the way, learning how to mute the strings is one of those things. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is just to sit and play the chord back and forth. And by the way, learn to love the beauty of just the chord by itself. I think so oftentimes we get so focused on, I got to learn this song, I got to learn this solo, got to learn the shred. All those are important. But sometimes if you just learn to appreciate, man, this is a beautiful sounding chord. I just love the way this sounds, and explore the nuance of that and how your fingers touching the fretboard release that chord into the atmosphere. You actually can learn to do little things like mute strings properly and strum better. I know that sounds a little, I don't know, hoochie faducci or whatever, but it's truth. Trust me. So after that, we're going to basically just move one finger, and then this is going to become an E5. Now here's where this gets a little interesting, because on this E5, really what we're going to do, actually we're going to move 2 fingers. I'm going to set you up for super success here. Pinky's going to go up from the 4th fret of the B to the 5th fret of the B. And then your index, let's go ahead and just move your index finger over here to the 2nd fret of the A. And so now we're going to play everything. Now, remember how you bent your ring finger when we made that B bar chord? You kind of sort of bent that at the knuckle. Well, your index finger is going to perform a similar activity where you're doing that because you want that, if you can, get that high E ring and you get this, just E's and B's. Now, if you lay your index finger down and you get that F sharp, not the end of the world, but it's not this, which is the start of every great Irish reel. Well, there was a man, he had a ship, his ship was named, was whatever, And if you're an Irish reel performer, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of you. But that's what it sounds like, right? Now check this out. From that E5, we're going to go to a B chord. And the only difference in this B sus4 that I'm going to show you is literally the bass note. Because when we go back to this B chord, it's almost the exact same as the E major 7. Well, I should say the only difference is very, very, very similar. Index finger is now going to be on the 2nd fret of the A, skipping the D, and again, the D is being muted by the arc of the index finger. And then your ring finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G, 4th fret of the B. There's your B, and then we're going to just move that up to B sus4. We're basically just like that E5 was a second ago, but we're not playing the low E. We're focusing on that B note of the 2nd fret of the A as our bass note, but the pinky is going to come up to the 5th fret of that B string. And then C sharp minor 9. And some of you may be picking up on what's happening here with this particular chord grip. We've got this little melody moving back and forth. C sharp minor 9 is going to be a middle finger of the A string, 4th fret. Index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D. And then you're going to have your ring finger on the 4th fret of the G. Pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the B into that C sharp minor chord. We're going to move that pinky up to the 5th fret, just like that. So that little melody basically is moving back and forth, right? You don't necessarily have to play give your index finger break there and just don't play that D string at all. You can mute it. And then from here, this lovely little maneuver where we're going to go, it's really like an A sus2 with a sharp 11 because it's got that D sharp. And that's just going to be, again, ring is going to be on the 4th fret of the G, pinky's going to be on the 4th fret of the B, A in the bass, and slide that guy up there. And if you want to add another little melodic touch just to flip this chord progression back around, you can take your little index finger just hanging out and doing nothing. He can grab the E string of the 2nd fret, hammer on pull off maybe, or just pull off. So that whole shebang could sound like this. There are several different ways, and by the way, this is just tip of the iceberg. There's so many different ways to approach this chord progression. You can use a capo, you can do different tunings, but also there's a lot of different chord voicings. What are some of your favorite ways to play that classic 1-5-6-4 chord progression? I sure do appreciate y'all taking the time to comment on these videos, participate in the live chat, but most of all, I'm grateful that all of us are living life the best we can with the guitar in our hand. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I appreciate y'all. We'll see you next week for another Chords Coffee.